Having taken a sound beating from the global economic crisis and been the victim of some dodgy decision-making, General Motors are now on the comeback trail. It started with the Spark, and then they had the Orlando, and now there's the Sonic. Another model that proves the American financial motto of the best way to get yourself out of a financial hole is to spend more money. And I'm not making that up. Those words were uttered to me by a senior vice president of GM a few years back. So spend money they have, developing a contender in the B segment, which is arguably one of the toughest corners of the market, and one where the competition is set to increase at the same rate as its growth. As the world scales back its consumption of all things automotive, Chevrolet is hoping the Sonic will fill the need for more modest motoring. One of the most obvious features of the new Sonic is the bulbous headlights. The designers call the look expose, kind of like you'd see on a motorbike. Now, I'm not a big fan of motorbikes, but that's not the reason I don't like it. For me, it's all just trying too hard. Where companies like Kia, whose new Rio you would have seen earlier in the show, are creating designs that are genuinely fresh and unique, this car's looks seem a little misguided. Exposed headlights are a different idea, yes, but do they look good? No. At best, it looks like a 10-year-old Lexus from the front, and at the back, the rear lights just don't look like they fit in with the rest of the design. There may not be much you can do when it comes to the styling, but thankfully, there's a bit more room to move when it comes to the engine. Initially, there will be two engines, both petrol, a 1.4 and this, a 1.6. The new generation motor puts out 85 kilowatts and 115 newton meters and has a claimed combined cycle fuel consumption figure of 6.5 litres per 100. Although that sounds a little generous. Our trip computer didn't read much below 10 litres per 100, and we did a fair amount of open road driving. Chev have said there will be a 1.3-litre turbo diesel with a 6-speed manual, but for now, they're calling it an option for release at a later date. Driving through Franschhoek, we took in a mixture of mountain roads, highways and town driving, and the 1.6-litre Sonic managed well with all of them. One of the best things about the Sonic is the 5-speed manual gearbox, which is a good thing considering it's your only gearbox option at the moment. The engine feels good too, even though our test unit has done less than 1,000 Ks. It always seems to have enough torque, although it's not the quietest thing in its segment. From the time you get going, the Sonic lets you know that it's working, and the harder you work it, the more it starts to sound like a strangulation act. There is a thing that manufacturers concentrate on when designing cars, and it's called noise, vibration, and harshness, or NVH. Basically, it's a combination of the effect that all the noisy bits of the car, from the motor to the door seals, have on the drive. Chev's press notes about this engine claim that the hollow frame cast iron cylinder block has excellent NVH qualities, but it could be better. Chev are particularly proud of the ride setup in the Sonic, and to be honest, they should be. We've had this car in some mountain passes, and it is surprisingly good. It deals with the corners no problem, the steering feels good. It's not what you'd call thrilling or exciting, but it is fun. And it's thanks largely to another invention that adds yet another 3-letter acronym to the world of cars. And that is BFI. It stands for Body Frame Integral Structure, and it's all about putting the right steels in the right areas of the chassis to make it as stiff as possible. That makes the job of tuning the chassis easier, which means they can spend a lot of time making the ride as comfortable and capable as possible. I was surprised a few times when the Sonic failed to understeer, even when pushing it. The interior of the Sonic is a bit of a mixed bag. For starters, you get these nicely designed controls and a decent-looking center stack. Then there are the materials, which are some good and some not so good. But then there is this instrument display, which Chev will tell you was designed using computational mathematical modeling. And I'm quite sure it was, using a Commodore 64 in 1987. It's the same instrument cluster that poor drivers of the Chevy Spark have to endure. It's horrendous, despite its clever mix of analog and digital information. But if you can avoid looking at that one bit, the rest of the interior switchgear and layout isn't bad at all. It has the feel of the more upmarket Cruze, with blue illumination and well laid out everything. Our test car was fitted with the optional Comfort Pack, which includes a multifunction steering wheel, Bluetooth, a USB connection, and an upgraded sound system. Space in the Sonic is good, with both the rear seats and the boot providing decent areas to stuff your passengers and their things. The Sonic is another step in GM's steady comeback path, although with some of those styling and interior elements it is a bit of a different path. Still, it's a well-made car with a good engine and surprisingly good handling, and it will make for an enjoyable everyday machine. A decent 1.6-litre engine offers enough muscle and torque to ensure nippy performance. Add a surprisingly good suspension setup together with a comfy interior, and the Sonic gets the nod on most counts. Pity the engine lacks refinement when pressing on though.